It's my DraftKings hockey picks for Monday, February 10th, and we're starting right now. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Holkamaniacs YouTube channel. If this is your first time here and you want to become a more profitable DraftKings player, start out by subscribing to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. And if you're already a Holkamaniac, you know exactly what time it is. Smash that like button, but better yet, if you want to get into the drawing for 20 DK bucks, make sure you let me know in the comments what your favorite stack is for tonight's NHL slate. Before we talk about today's stacks, I do want to talk a little bit about the Friday night slate. That's the last video that we had. Great night for the community in general. We're going to talk about the center position. Austin Matthews gets a total smash spot for him. He did get there, thankfully, 8,700 on DraftKings. He was 38% owned, but he's a guy you had to have. Goal and 3 assists, 6 shots and 4 blocks. This guy basically hit every bonus there was to hit on DraftKings, even at 8,700. Our boy Austin Matthews, Arizona product, definitely got there for us, which was great. Another guy we talked about was Mika Zibanejad. That game actually got there late, surprisingly. Goal and assist in the third period, I believe. 5 shots for Zibanejad. Just another guy that's been really consistent for us. The winger position, we did talk a little bit about Buchnevich in that game. I mentioned that game didn't get there until the end. Buchnevich was not a part of it, unfortunately, but he was only 4,400, so hopefully he didn't kill you with that one shot. Again, 22% owned in the large GPP, so a lot of people were on him. The other winger we talked about was Kevin Fiala at 4K. He was someone that definitely has been playing hot lately. 4 shots on goal, did add an assist at just 7% ownership. I was pretty happy with the Fiala call on Friday. On the defense position, we did talk about how it just wasn't near. We didn't have that elite option that we normally have, like the Roman Josi or John Carlson, something like that. Tyson Barrie in that really high total game for Toronto. That game ended up having a lot of scoring. Barrie just didn't get too involved. He did add 2 shots and 2 blocks, so decent peripherals, certainly didn't kill you, but at 6,300, you would want a lot more from that. Savard, 3,800, we knew he was more of a floor play, right? He was never a guy that just has a ton of a ceiling to him. The question mark, I guess the thing that was the most concerning is he didn't even have a block shot in this game. That's part of the reason we're rostering a guy like Savard. 3,800, it was just a salary saver that you kind of needed there. The good news is, which we'll get to, we found a lot of other cheap plays that we could have gone to on the value side of things. We'll talk through that in the Discord. Goalie was better, thankfully. We did go with our boy Elvis. He at 8,300 did get the win and the shutout. Not a ton of saves in this one, but 21.2 DK points. We'll certainly take that at goalie. And we did get Campbell as well. 7,800, the Toronto goaltender did get the win, but like I said, there was a lot of goals scored in that game overall. 10.2 DK points. I would say this is mostly a neutral play, a goaltender for us. There was a couple other lower owned options that kind of approached the Elvis side of things with 21.2. So, of course, this was the chalk. I do think that Campbell was at least an interesting play on DraftKings at that price tag. The thing that I want to talk about the most and continue to kind of nail this home in terms of what we've been talking about in the Discord community. So check out the description if you want to come hang out with us and talk about the slate even after this video. This is where we land on some of these value plays that open up late, but also like one of the things that we talked about a decent amount was Zibanejad's price tag at 8,200. I actually really like the idea of going down to 7,300 to Tavares. I do think that he's still someone that correlates really well with Austin Matthews on that first power play unit, even though they don't play even strength minutes together. It was just such a big price difference between Tavares and Zibanejad that I like the idea of going down to him. Kind of got there when I started building. And then Johnson as well, 3,800. We knew he was going to play on the top line with Austin Matthews. At that point, he just became one of the better values on the slate when we did have a large total for Toronto. So we were on that. Brodin is actually someone that I got on late, actually instead of Savard on my main team at 3,600 on defense. He did end up getting the block bonus for us and an assist in that game. So I really like that price point. Matt Jones, 2,600. If you really wanted to go deep, he was playing top 6 minutes for the Anaheim Ducks. So shout out to, I can't remember, I think it might have been Doozy in the chat that mentioned Jones. So shout out to him. Foligno, 4,300. Another guy in our Discord community brought him up in that Columbus side. Columbus was very popular on the slate, guys. And Foligno at 4,300 ended up being a really nice value play. So 22.5 DK points at that. We'll definitely take that. So let's jump in today's slate, guys. Congrats to everyone in the Discord that just basically gave us a lot of really nice insights as the day went on. All right, guys, just 6 games on tap today. So going to try and wheel through this section a little bit quicker than normal, but we are going to talk about some stack opportunities here and overall game environment. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and I do provide this data sheet, by the way, in the Discord for all my Twitch subscribers. So if you want to walk through this on your own, definitely feel free to jump in there. And the first thing that I like to do typically is sort by game pace. So that's one of the things that is just going to take into account the defenses on both sides of the puck. Hopefully it's going to give us some opportunities for a decent amount of shot attempts on both sides, which is ideally what we want. So one of the games that stands out from that perspective would be Nashville and Vancouver on this smaller slate. I will say that the one thing that stands out right away, neither of these teams are really producing a ton of high danger opportunities. So Nashville actually has produced the third fewest high danger opportunities over the last 10 games on offense. So that's certainly a concern in this game in terms of overall scoring. I will say the one thing that I do like quite a bit is that Vancouver is giving up a ton of Corsi. So from Nashville's perspective, definitely think they would at least be in play. I don't know if they'd be a core play for me today in terms of stacks, but it is notable at least that Vancouver has allowed the most Corsi against on the slate over the last 25 games. So I think that this might be a place where we can maybe find some valuable one-offs. I don't know, this high danger in terms of the way both offenses are playing, I think it's relatively spread out on both sides of the puck as well. So I'm not as interested in this spot to fully stack up. So let's dig a little bit deeper here, guys. And we talked about some high danger opportunities on the other side. Let's talk about some teams that are playing really well lately. So one of the spots that would normally stand out to me, we've talked about them a decent amount lately, is the New York Islanders. They're just generating so many high danger chances lately. It's just a really tough matchup against Washington. So I actually really like the Islanders in terms of a lower owned stack today, because I think most people are going to be on the Washington side of this game. So let's go ahead and add that. I think that the Islanders are at least interesting if you're playing some large field tournaments. We do know that there's guys like Matthew Barzal that we can stack relatively easily and feel pretty good about their upside. They're a team that actually overall, like Washington's not giving up a ton of Corsi volume overall, but at least slightly above average in terms of their low danger. So this could be a lower owned spot. Definitely don't think it's a spot I'd be going to in cash games, but at least interesting. One of my favorite spots on the entire slate, if we are going to stack things up though, is pretty clearly Philly. I do like Philly quite a bit against Florida. So we're just looking at Philly overall. They do have a nice team total. They're at home. They're a team that's been playing a lot better lately as well. I normally mention this as I went through the data sheet and how to use this. There's a video on that in the Discord as well if you want a little bit of an idea of how I would go ahead and use this sheet. But Corsi 4, this is kind of just looking at the difference over the short term. So the last 10 games versus their last 25. So Philly actually has the biggest increase in that metric over that time period. So I do like that quite a bit. They've been throwing more pucks on net and they've been generating more high danger chances. So Florida is a team that we know gives up Corsi, and they are going to give up a slightly above average amount of high danger chances as well. So I really like Philly today. If we're just looking at Florida, they do allow the fourth most Corsi 4 overall. So I think that Philly at home is still going to be one of our core spots today. If we want to dig a little bit deeper here, what else? So I think that let's talk about Washington for a second, because I do think this is going to be a popular spot for good reason. I think that this is probably going to be one of my favorite stacking targets again. So let's go ahead and add that one. Washington, nice team total at home. They're a team that, I mean, they've been providing offense for us a lot of this entire season. Middle of the pack in terms of their high danger 4 over the last 10 games, so I'm not super worried about that. We know the Islanders are going to give up almost more Corsi than anyone on the slate. Second highest on the slate, 62.4 Corsi against over the last 25 games. They have allowed a fewer amount of low danger, middle of the pack and high danger. So anytime you see a metric like this, they're probably just generating more medium danger chances kind of in the middle here. So definitely think fantastic spot for Washington. And the great thing about Washington, especially on a slate of this size, we know where the scoring is going to come from. Ovechkin, Backstrom, Karlsson. And then if we really want to get contrarian on this higher total, just going after some of those secondary pieces on the Washington side of the puck. I definitely think that that's a really good spot today. So we'll talk about that a decent amount. Let's talk about some targets in terms of matchup overall that we could go to. San Jose is a team that we've been targeting a lot lately. It's because of this number right here, guys. They've been allowing the most high danger scoring chances out of anyone on the entire slate, even if their Corsi is right middle of the pack. Definitely think that Calgary is another team that I'll be interested in today in terms of a stacking perspective. They're not at home, which I always would love to see that, but they are providing a decent amount of Corsi 4. Their low danger, high danger is definitely kind of neutral at this point. So I think at that point, you kind of look towards the matchup. And I do think San Jose would be a prime target for us on most slates. Certainly Calgary is one of those teams that I'll be targeting for sure. Let's dive into the center position, and I will say right off the bat, this is a position that I think is really thin tonight. I don't know if we have an elite option to go to, but I don't even know how much I love the value as well. So I'm really hoping something opens up as the day goes on in Discord. We can kind of talk through that a little bit more. But the plays that I have for you guys today at the center position, I think that Nicholas Backstrom, especially on this slate, we know how much we like Washington in this spot. 6,500 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. Honestly, it's probably a little bit overpriced relative to his peripherals. If anyone's been following my content, Backstrom's one of those guys that I struggle with historically because his shooting volume just hasn't been there. This year, he's been shooting a little bit more, 90th percentile shots plus blocks. That's at least reasonable. 84th percentile Corsi for. We know Corsi is extremely important at the center position, so that's something I'll be looking at over the last 15 days. Solid number there from Backstrom, 82nd percentile shot prediction. I think he's totally fine. 94th percentile block. So at least we have a little bit of a floor there. That's what I love about at least paying a little bit more for the center position. They're going to give you some blocks. Most wingers are not going to give you much of that. We know that Backstrom's going to correlate really well to a guy like Alexander Ovechkin at even strength and on the power play. I will say that Washington, second highest implied team total on the slate. Washington does have the third highest Corsi for over the last 10. And the New York Islanders, second highest Corsi against over that same time period. So definitely think that that's a spot we are going to be going to today. Backstrom's going to be a part of it. Sean Couturier for Philly. I mentioned how much I do like Philly on this slate as well. 6,200 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel. You're definitely not getting a discount from either of these guys. I'll say that right away. 89th percentile shot prediction. 82nd percentile shots plus blocks over the last 15 days, and it is the highest implied team total on the slate. So Philly, I will say the one thing that I liked about them that stood out in the game environment stacking section is that they do have the second highest high danger scoring chances for over the last 10 games as well. So definitely think it's a spot we could go to today that could have a decent amount of upside. And I do like the matchup quite a bit as well, which we didn't talk about probably enough. Florida, second highest percentage of high danger chances against on the season as well. So we're definitely, if we want to get up to these guys, we're going to have to find some value. If we're going to be on Backstrom, it's not surprising that we're going to be talking about Alexander Ovechkin today. He's kind of the outlier in terms of guys to pay up for at the winger position. Like I said, they're not going to give us many block shots. They're really not going to give us a chance to hit that block bonus on most slates. But Ovechkin, the shooting volume you get from this guy, the goal scoring ability, it's just someone that we can build around in cash games and tournaments, especially a slate size like this. 8,800, I think that's a great place to spend salary today. On DraftKings, 99th percentile shot prediction, 99th percentile shots plus blocks, 99th percentile time on ice. That's over the last 15 days. But we know Ovi's going to be involved if Washington's going to have a big night tonight. 96th percentile power play shots. We know that shot that he has from that point area is just, it's basically an automatic if he does get it on net. So I'd love to see that. In terms of DraftKings overall, I think he's going to be probably the highest owned player on the slate, most slates, especially if we don't have a guy like, we don't have the Toronto guys to go after today, right? So those guys have been really popular lately. Ovi, I would imagine, is going to be just piled on, but I think that's some chalk that I'll be eating across a lot of my teams today. You can stack them with Backstrom. I mentioned Washington 1 and on the Washington power play 1. Only Roman Josi has a higher overall rating in my model today, so definitely think Ovi is going to be a priority for me. Sean Lawton. So we're gonna need some savings, right? So I'm talking about some guys for Philly. I do like that game environment overall. Lawton is 3,700 on DraftKings, 3,600 on FanDuel. It's kind of gross though, guys. Let's be completely honest here. He's an 82nd percentile shots plus block shooter over the last 15 days. Value winger in the top 6 with a high implied team total. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And on a slate like this where we don't have a lot of great value yet, he would be one of my leans if you did want to pay down at one of your other winger slots today. Concerns would definitely be that he doesn't play on the power play. He definitely has a lack of consistent peripheral stats overall. I mentioned him before, but the highest rated player in my model today is going to be Roman Josi. And that's not something that happens every slate, but most slates that Roman Josi is on it is just elite peripherals, guys. So my model is very heavily weighted towards those type of stats. 7,900 on DraftKings. Still think is a fine price tag for Josi. 99th percentile shot prediction. 99th percentile shots plus blocks over the last 15 days. And again, 99th percentile time on ice. So those are the type of guys that you want to spend up for. Those elite running back volume type of plays in terms of NHL. Definitely think Josi is someone that really fits that bill. 89th percentile power play shots as well. So I think that Josi offers a decent amount of upside on every slate that he's in. And I will say that the floor is fantastic as well. So he's got to be a cash game building block for me. 5 or greater peripheral stats in each of his last 5 games. So that's just the type of floor that no one's really offering you outside of a guy like Roman Josi. Vancouver does have the second most low danger shot attempts on the slate over the last 10 as well. So what that tells me is that they're going to be shooting from the perimeter more often, but they also get more shots blocked as well. So if you get a shot blocked, and the way that high danger and low danger works is you move down a point level in terms of that. So I do think that Yossi's in a great spot to hit that block bonus today. So let's try and find a little bit more value. I do like, again, this Philly game quite a bit. If we want to find some salary saving options in that game, I do think that Niskanen is an interesting price pivot at 4,200. He's someone we could go to. 89th percentile power play shots over the last 15 days. I do think that the 91st percentile shot prediction is something that I'm drawn to in particular, as well as his 80th percentile time on ice over that same time period. So he's someone at 4,200. Just seems a little bit underpriced for this game environment. Philly does have the largest increase in offensive Corsi for over the last 10 games on this slate, one of the things we mentioned in the stack section. So I think he's interesting. He's averaging a point per game over his last 7 as well. Typically, I think of Niskanen as more of a defensive specialist, especially his time in Washington, that shutdown role. But I think that he's someone that does have a little bit of offensive ability and a little bit of upside as well at that price point, this slate in particular. All right, we did better at goalie on Friday. Let's kind of keep this train rolling a little bit. I think it's an interesting goalie slate, to say the least. So let's start with Andrei Vasilevskiy for Tampa Bay. He is 8K on DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel, 95th percentile team wins over the last month, 8-1-1 over their last 10 games. Tampa Bay has really been turning it on. They do have an implied team total greater than 3.5 goals. There's a couple things that worry me at least a little bit. Before we get there, Columbus, lowest high danger shot attempt percentage on the entire slate over the last 10 games. They're shooting from the perimeter a lot. The concern is Columbus has actually been playing really well, and Tampa Bay is on the road against this hot Columbus team as well. So this is an interesting slate where I actually think 2 of my favorite goalie plays overall are in this game. Let's talk about our boy Elvis. He got there for us last week with that shutout, even though there wasn't a lot of shot attempts there, at 7,300 on DraftKings. I think that he's just priced way too cheap for this spot. He's priced way down on DraftKings because of the Tampa Bay matchup, of course. But that's a pretty cheap price tag for a guy that has been playing extremely well, for a team that has been playing extremely well. 95th percentile team wins over the last month. You did not read that incorrectly. It's the same exact streak over the last 10 games that Tampa Bay has. This is going to be an awesome game to watch from a real hockey perspective, but I actually think that it could be a little bit lower scoring than most people do. And I think that Elvis, at that price point, I'm interested in him on this side of this game as well. So if you're rolling out some MME, kind of grabbing some shares of each of these guys, hoping that you hit that win and do kind of get a nice price discount from Elvis, or you just get that 8K price point for Vasilevskiy, you do get the win for a team that has played well. The thing that I like about this from the goalie perspective, we mentioned that Columbus does have the lowest high danger shot attempts. Tampa Bay, second lowest high danger shot attempts. Just another reason I think this game could be lower scoring than most, both to elite defensive teams. Concern would be the second largest underdog on the slate in terms of Columbus, but I think it's an interesting spot for both of these guys. If you needed the savings, going down to Elvis. If you do have the extra salary, I think Vasilevskiy is still totally fine. But let's make sure we check these before lock as well. I always want to mention that these guys are not confirmed at the time of this video, so make sure you jump into the Discord. We'll make sure we have the right goalies confirmed in chat. If you want to learn more about how to be a profitable DraftKings player, make sure to hit the subscribe icon in the bottom right-hand corner if you haven't already. But come hang out with us in the Discord. This is where we're going to continue to talk about tonight's NHL slate. It's been an awesome community so far. Come join us.